All right, what's up? Episode 101. How's everybody doing? Okay, so we're going to talk about what to do with your training when you're dealing with emotional grief or mental stress and how that affects, the physiological side of the human body and how that's really going to affect your training and what you should be doing. This was a conversation that I got DM'd from a client about, having good days and bad days in the gym, and when I feel that I have days where I can't lift anything and I can't do anything, what should I be doing moving forward in my training? What should I be doing on those days more specifically? And then just randomly, a conversation with actually a team member, an employee, was kind of on the same boat of like, hey, when I am a little bit more mentally stressed, the natural instinct is to stop doing something or to change something versus what do I do with what I'm feeling, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. And this is a good question because I think there's a lot of people that, use this as something that prevents them from moving forward in a lot of areas of life, not just working out. I think for work purposes too, this is something that's very easy to kind of do because you have to remember anytime you're dealing with any type of emotional issue or mental issue or stress or grief, like whatever the subject is, they all kind of fall in kind of the same category a little bit, right? They naturally start to take a toll on the energy demands of your body, right? Like you don't think like, okay, I'm not exerting any physical energy, so why do I feel so weak today? And the reality of it is because it starts to ruin other areas of the body, right? So just to kind of segue that part first out of the way, and I'll give you a good example because I literally just had a terrible night of sleep dealing with some mental stress that kept me up late at night, and I went and slept on the couch instead. And the reason why, there's days that we go into the gym and we don't feel like we have a lot of energy, or there's days that we get into the gym and we're still a little bit more mentally or emotionally overloaded and we're not really 100% connected to our body, is you have to remember that, number one, your nervous system controls the muscular system, right? So when the nervous system is not in a good place, the muscles do not fire the way they should be firing, right? So it's normal to feel slower or achier or weaker or whatever it might be. But then on the back end side of things too, it's like we have to look at all the recovery and the things that give you energy, right? And I don't want to speak for everyone, but I'll speak for the majority of the people that I work with, and just obviously speaking on myself as always, that when I feel stressed out, the first thing that suffers is I tend to lose my sleep. Like the quality of my sleep just diminishes, right? And that comes from a couple things. Number one is just like a racing mind, or a thought or an emotion or something that you're kind of sitting on. And I think that requires you taking the time to really address that separately, but that's going to be kind of the second part of this conversation. So your sleep kind of suffers. Number two, some people tend to kind of maybe drink or have different coping mechanisms or extra caffeine. Like they do things that kind of just sedate the feeling, right? And that's totally normal. Well, this is where I think even for procrastination for a lot of people, I'm like the king of procrastination, and it's very easy to kind of sedate the current thing we should be doing and delay that emotion or push it back or bury it or whatever it might be. And that obviously has a physiological negative effect on the body as well, right? So for example, me saying, oh, I had a stressful day, so I'm going to sleep a little, or I'm going to drink a little bit more and have 3 glasses of wine instead of 2, that's going to impact my sleep even worse, right? Which is going to impact my energy the next day, which is going to impact the, the nutrients that I got into the body, because my diet's going to change. My hormones are going to change. So everything kind of starts shuttling the opposite direction, right? And with that in return, you obviously are going to live your life at work and at the gym, and you're not going to feel like you have a lot of energy to do those things, right? But when it comes to training, and I think the progressive overload side of it especially, when you think about getting stronger, you think about getting faster, you think about improving in any metric of training, a lot of people look at it as this very linear thing, right? So this is even a conversation I was talking with a new client this morning. It's like, hey, like the way that we structure our cycles is we have 6-week training cycles where every day of the week is the same workout. And your goal is to try to see if you can get better by moving more weights or moving more reps and sets with the same weight, whatever it is. But you have to have an understanding that it's not going to be linear, right? Meaning like as much as we would try for that thing to just continually be working up in weight or that thing to continually be improving on pace and time, that's not the truth, right? And the reason why is there's got to be this balancing act, right? Everything is about balance in life. This is why the podcast is named Pursuit of Balance. But the yin and the yang, right? So it's like the more stress that you put onto your body via training, the more there's a demand for the recovery side of it, right? And, where this entire podcast topic came from, I love her kind of strong girl era posts and all these things. And these are great strategies, right? To, when you are dealing with something mentally or emotionally, to take that energy or to take that thing or to take that focus and act on doing something for yourself, but mainly doing something through like working outs, right? It's called working out for a reason, is you have to get this energy out of your body. And this is why working out is such a potent antidepressant for so many things, is because you get to move your body, you get the endorphins, you get all these chemical reactions. Like, you get all these things that make you feel good, right? But you have to remember, working out needs to be complemented with working in, right? And if we're not really paying attention to the working inside of the table or that conversation, it's very easy for the working out to run into a wall. And this is where plateaus happen. This is where bad workouts happen. And when I say plateaus, you know, sometimes that could be something that's in the macro. Like, you can be stuck for weeks or months or years even, depending on, hopefully not years, depending if you're really trying to focus on improving. But then there's also these kind of little micro plateaus, right? You're just like, man, I had a fucking terrible week. You know, it's like my workouts felt like shit, my mobility felt terrible, whatever it might be. You know, so the question was, what do I do on the days where I don't feel good, right? My immediate response in the DM and the message was like, you know, no matter what, you should train, right? Like, you should just get to the gym, you still move, right? Something that we like always as trainers call it is like, you know, like move days or mobility days or sweat days, or just something to kind of just like get you to get out of this funk, right? Because I know for me, a lot of times when I don't have the greatest sleep or I'm a little bit more stressed out, I don't really want to make things overcomplicated. I want to exert a lot of, you know, neuromuscular kind of energy. I just want to just do something to get me sweating, kind of get my body warm, or I just want to do something that kind of makes me feel good. But I've realized that the times that I'm tired or the times that I'm weak are the days that it's actually probably better for me to just kind of build up a little bit of a sweat, right? And just kind of move, but I need the movement to be a little bit faster. And the reason why is if I just continually lean into this very slow-paced workout, that warm-up might take me 40 minutes before I actually feel good. Versus if I just get into something where I just start sweating and I start huffing and puffing and I just start like, okay, like me going on a mile lap for a warm-up versus doing some lunges and twists, right? Like, those would be two different reactions on kind of how increasing the core body temperature or just getting your body to kind of wake up a little bit. There's a reason why we do push-ups and burpees here at the gym if we work here when we yawn, is because like you just need to wake up your body. And one of the best ways to wake up the body is through action and through physical exertion. But the biggest thing to really take away on why you should still be doing the thing and really kind of sit down and not let that one little thing distract you from, okay, I'm not going to stop working out, or the conversation with I have with the player, am I going to stop or change my schedule because of this, is a lot of times when we feel overwhelmed, we have to first realize that that was something that compounded over time. Like, that took a long time for, well, I don't want to say a long time. That's subjective. But it's something that's piled up, right? Like, for me personally, when I have like nights that I don't sleep well or days where I just feel a little bit more stressed, it's because I kind of just continually just keep packing things down. Like, I'm like, okay, I know I need to do that, but I haven't got it out. I haven't wrote down like how to organize my thoughts, or I just kind of procrastinated where I haven't taken action. And then what happens is I end up feeling like, oh fuck, I have like 5 or 10 things that I should have been doing that I should have done already that I didn't do. Now I feel overwhelmed and stressed, right? And that doesn't matter what it is. I keep using my example because it's the easiest to speak on, but it doesn't matter if it's a loss of a job, a loss in a relationship, a loss of a loved one. It doesn't matter if it's a stressful day, a hard day, like whatever it is that's causing you this emotional distress or grief, generally comes from something that is still unfinished, right? Like, I haven't solved that problem, and this is why I'm still dealing with that emotional or mental thing. Now, that being said, some problems are much easier to get over or finish or, like, you know, solve than others, right? Like me saying I have a couple tasks that I didn't do today at work, and that's causing me a little bit of stress in the back of my head. Okay, cool. It's like, hey, sit down, do those things, and I would get that out of my way. I made a post on this last week about, like, the benefits of spring cleaning. And, you know, it's one of those things I think we always have to go through to remind ourselves the importance of it. But I went through just a couple days or a day and a half of just at home of, like, you know, finishing some home chores, doing some stuff in the backyard, cleaning up the carport area a little bit. And it's just like, I remember feeling like, wow, I feel really fucking good. And it's like, why do I feel good? It's because, A, I got rid of the clutter. B, I started taking action on the things I should have been taking action on a long time ago versus just putting the work to the side all the time. So these are all things that kind of allowed me to move forward and feel better about myself. And the energy that I felt the next day was even way better than it normally was, right? So, and you don't think that something that has a little bit of kind of mind space or mental share in the back of your head would actually have an impact until you actually get that thing out of there, and then you free up some space in the mental side of things, and you're like, wow, I feel a lot better. Like, I have so much more clarity. But the biggest thing, I keep kind of going around Robin here, the biggest thing is understanding that the consistency of doing the thing is more important than the results of the thing you're doing, right? Like, that is probably the biggest, like, if I were to just say one statement to answer that question, the importance of doing the thing and the consistency of showing up is more important than the outcome of the thing you're doing. And just let that ingrain into your head, right? So that's like the most important thing out of all the things I could talk about and all the things I could make this sound fancy. That is the most important takeaway, right? And the reason why is because generally when things do get tough in life or things do become stressful or emotional, the first response to the body is just to kind of stop, right? It's like to stop doing things or take time off or take a break or change the schedule versus allowing yourself to kind of sit in that for a little bit longer and have some logical, reasoning behind the emotion, or finding different avenues, platforms, or channels and ways for you to kind of exert that thing too, right? But in relationship to the gym, you have to remember that not every day are you going to feel strong. Not every day are you going to feel mobile. Not every day are you going to feel like you have a lot of energy. But the day that you come to the gym and the day that you still do the work are the days that you have opportunities to build discipline because you're no longer riding on motivation. When we start working out and we start seeing progress, it's very easy for us to ride the wave of motivation because we're motivated. It's like, oh yeah, fuck, I'm feeling strong, I'm feeling mobile, I'm feeling better. But then there's days where you're like, fuck, I just had my ass kicked today, I had the worst workout. And it's very easy for one little setback to be the thing that's like, you know what, fuck it, I just need to take time off, I need to take a break, right? I see this a lot, obviously, running a business where a lot of people are like, hey, I need to downgrade my membership, I got hurt, or I need to freeze for 2 months because I kind of tweaked my wrist. And the answer, like, normally that comes to my head is, no, you don't need to stop, you don't need to reduce. You need to just make adjustments and regressions, right? You need to spend more time on, the working in part or the recovery part, but it doesn't mean you need to stop the working out part. That was the conversation I had with one of the team members today, which is like, hey, like a lot of times the first question I ask when things get stressful in life is not what are you doing with the thing that we're complaining about the stress coming from, but it's more of like, what are the things surrounding that are causing that to feel overwhelming, right? So for example, it's like if all of a sudden I feel like my work-life balance is off, but my work is the exact same amount of hours and the exact same thing, then is it really the work that's the problem, or is it the life that's the problem? And most of the time it's going to be something outside of work is causing me to feel overwhelmed at work. So being careful to make sure that we're blaming the right thing, right, versus the wrong thing. Because when we blame the wrong thing, we just tend to say, okay, well, that didn't work. We see this in diets all the time where people say, like, well, one thing didn't work, that doesn't work for me. And it's like, okay, there's context to that, right? There's context to everything. So I want to kind of keep this one short. I just want to kind of share my opinion that, like, no matter what, at the end of the day, there's going to be things that you have that are going to really just emotionally or mentally drain you, and it's going to ruin your sleep. It's going to ruin, your cravings and your appetite. It's going to ruin your energy for workout. It's going to ruin your motivation. But use those days as opportunities to understand that you doing the thing and keeping the habit of the thing is the thing that's going to allow you to build discipline. And if anything is important from working out, it's the act of discipline and self-care and the consistency that you can give yourself, no matter you feeling good, you feeling terrible. The days that you show that you feel terrible, you've proven to yourself that you can do something even when you don't want to do something. This, not to get sidetracked with cold plunging, but this is always the thing I said about cold plunging when I started doing it, and this is why I still like doing it. I don't really give a shit about the physiological benefits. The cool thing is those are all side effects that are great for me. Cool. The reason why I do it is the fact that doing something that I don't want to do builds mental resiliency, right? It allows me to just basically say, you know what? No matter how fucked up life gets, no matter how hard things get, I can still prove to myself that I can do these things moving forward. I can still prove to myself that I have the strength and the ability to show up. Because showing up is the thing that most people fuck up. Like, it's really not that hard to be in the top 1% of anything in life if you can just be disciplined enough to continually do the thing over and over and over again. Most people fail because they quit. They don't fail because they don't know enough, right? Failure only comes from when you quit. So when you do have a day where you feel down, you do have a day at work where you feel stressed, instead of changing things, instead of stopping, instead of taking a break, you doing it and continually moving forward and understanding that there's seasons to everything, just like any other thing in life. My favorite analogy with weather is all things will pass. The sun is always shining no matter how many clouds or rain things are in front of it, right? So you need to remember that just the action of consistency is the thing that we're always trying to work on with working out. That's what exercise is about. Yes, there's physical benefits. Yes, there's all these things that we talk about from the health side of things. But the biggest thing that's going to change your life forever is the mental resiliency and the emotional stability by proving to yourself that you can do that thing. And when you're in the gym and you don't feel that great, do not be afraid to regress. Regressions are the best progressions. When you're in the gym, don't think that I need to be doing the same amount of weight or more weight every single time I'm in the gym. The goal is like, hey, yes, most days I would like to get better, but it doesn't mean all days you're going to be. Some days you focus a little bit more on range of motion. Some days you focus a little bit more on cardio. Some days you just say, all the shit that I have been skipping, I'm going to focus on today. And then really the big thing too is also looking at like the length of the warm-up, right? Some days when I'm not feeling hot, my warm-up is my workout. So it's like instead of a 5 or 10 minute warm-up, it might be a 15, 20 minute warm-up. That's okay. I got to the gym, I moved, I did something. Because I will say from just personal experience, every time I go home and I skip a workout because I listen to that little voice, I feel way worse. I feel way harder on myself. I feel like almost to a sense, like I've always been someone that's just kind of hard on myself. I'm not someone that's like, you know, the self-love movement would say giving myself grace. I'm not someone that really is good at that for my personal being. So for me, it's like, not saying that's right or wrong. I'm not saying that you need to be hard on yourself, but for most people, yes, it's probably not a bad idea. But instead of just saying, hey, giving yourself grace for taking days off, like understand that you just doing something is always going to be better than nothing. The intensity is the thing that can be regressed. The volume is the thing that can be regressed. The exercise selection is the thing that can be regressed. You can do all these things to kind of shape and change that workout for that day. If you feel like you're starting to fall in a rut and you're hitting a plateau and your things are going backwards for days and weeks and months in a row, then maybe it's time for you and your coach or you and whoever you're working with or you and yourself to sit down with a pen and piece of paper to figure out what the fuck am I doing wrong here, because your body going negatively for time over like a long period of time, that's something that it's like, okay, maybe there's something here. There's merit to this conversation of us maybe changing things up. But if you have these one-off days, you have these one-off weeks, like just understand that stuff's not going to last forever. And I know it's much easier said than done because when we're in these bad seasons and we're in these bad patches of weather, that you just feel like, fuck, it's like, it's never going to get light again. It's like, I feel terrible. Like, I just want to give up. I just want to quit today. I don't want to show up. Like, all these little voices are going to pop up in your head. Those are the days you just got to remember, like, tell yourself that this is the day that I'm working on discipline. This is the thing that's requiring me to work on discipline. I have this a lot more with cooking than I do training. When I get home and I'm like, and I always try to convince Nick, I'm like, come on, babe, look, let's just order DoorDash. It'd be so much easier. And I always try to, typical salesman, I'm like, we don't have to clean up any dishes. I'll pay for it. It's great. And she's like, no, we got to cook. And I'm like, okay. You know, and this is like the same reason we have a coach, the same reason we have partners at home, same reason we have accountability systems. Is like, let these systems and people help you stay accountable, because the accountability is more important than anything. At the end of the day, it's like, no matter what you talk about, the accountability of doing the thing is the thing that makes it work, right? So don't get fixated on every day being good, because that's just not how life works. Don't be hard on yourself when you do have bad days, because going to the gym is just as impressive, if not more impressive, than someone skipping the gym when they have a bad day. That being said, if you have longer periods of times and that micro turns into a macro, don't be afraid to reevaluate what your training looks like. Don't be afraid to take a deload. Don't be afraid to take a vacation. Don't be afraid to change up the thing. Don't be afraid to find different strategies for you to find different ways to create excitement for what you're doing. Because when you're excited about it, when you're motivated, it's much easier to do. When you're not motivated, it requires a lot more discipline. And those days are good because they allow you to build discipline, but discipline is something that, you know, it will burn out. It's something that's hard to rely on all the time. So we want to leverage motivation. We want to leverage excitement. We want to leverage all those things. And this is why, in the sake of the fitness conversation, I'd much rather someone work out with friends or family or significant other, come to group training, use a personal trainer, use systems that allow you to have an environment that's conducive for you staying accountable, because when you are accountable, it works. All right, guys. Well, hope you got some good little nuggets out of that one, and I will see you guys. Actually, I'm not here next week, so I will be dropping another episode in 2 weeks. On that, take care. Have a good weekend.